4, 3, 2, 1. Watch me. Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up.
Hey guys, welcome back to Level Up with Lydia. My name is Lydia Navo. I am your host, and I am one of the owners of Level Up Consulting alongside Derek Palmer. And today I'm really excited because I get to reconnect with somebody that I haven't talked to in quite a few years. And even though we've done a little bit of catching up, get to hear a lot more from him. So welcome, Travis Hoag.
Yeah, thanks for
How are
having me.
you? Yeah.
Awesome.
And so, Travis, go ahead and just give us you were one of the owners of one of the outdoor lighting perspectives, actually multiple. So give us a rundown of which ones you own and what got you into it to even start.
Yeah, so I own outdoor lighting perspectives of Central Florida and West Palm Beach. And then we're looking at acquiring another location in South Florida here pretty soon. And so, yeah, we do exterior low voltage lighting, landscape lighting, exterior home lighting. We also do permanent roof line lighting, holiday decorating, and a little bit of outdoor audio as well, which actually is one of my more favorite aspects of what we do. Um, the franchise has been around for 30 years. I opened in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. Had a great career doing theme park consulting, electrical engineering for theme parks, and loved that career. But right at the beginning of COVID, um, I had a young daughter that was born, and my theme park work has involved a lot of travel, and suddenly I wasn't traveling. And so it
Yeah.
turned quickly into like, what do I do to stay home more after what was supposed to be 3 weeks of,
Yeah.
staying home? It turned into more, but what can I do to stay home more and be there with our young family? So I thought I would dabble in this, and it's exploded into something I really couldn't have dreamed of at the beginning. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and I was coaching you for a little while
Yep.
at the beginning, and, it's actually really funny because now when I drive around neighborhoods, I'm like, "Oh, those are that type of lighting. Oh, that's that
Yep.
type of lighting." So it just kinda makes me giggle because of what I've learned, but I know, like, your first year, you won awards every year, but you were one of, like, the fastest growing franchises, right?
Yeah, so we're the fastest growing franchise that the system had ever had. We did over 1 million in revenue in our first year, which at the time was unheard of and actually still stands today as like a continuing record.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it's also funny because I remember distinctly after getting that award, I had one of the other owners walk up to me and they're like, "Man, that's incredible. How'd you do 1 million in revenue?" And I was like, "Well, we spent 1.1 last year, so like I know the award looks great, but you know growth was very expensive." I think that was one of the big things we learned early on. But yeah, you were one of the first recommendations I had was to somebody told me to go get a business coach because I came from an engineering background. I never owned a business before, and it was kind of like that realization of I need to go back to school and learn what I don't know so I can ask all the right questions and you know reinvest in me and make sure this is successful. So
Yeah.
it was great.
I mean, you said a really great thing that I think more people need to understand about numbers. Saying, everybody goes, "Oh, wow, you made $1 million." And it's like, yeah, but didn't really.
Nope.
So can you expand a little bit more on that of what business owners might need to be looking at, but they're not looking at?
Yeah. And I was really bad at this for probably 3 years. I was like a checking account bookkeeper, which is like the worst bookkeeper you could have. And I think that was one of the first things that you and I worked on as well was developing that like look ahead cash flow planning. And um, but yeah, it's expensive to grow a business. There's kind of our franchise talks a lot about there's kind of two methods you can go with as an owner of a new location. There's like the slow growth where you might be the only employee at times, like you're in the trenching, you're managing every aspect and you're wearing every single hat you could possibly wear. And that's the like very slow, low profit, but profitable all the time growth, hopefully.
Mhm.
And then there's the like, you just burn cash on fire behind you as fast as you can, hoping at some point you hit a peak where you're actually making real margins and real profit, and you can go back and repay those losses from
Right.
previous. And I thought we were the first. We happened to be the second. And a big part of that, honestly, was starting during COVID. 2021 was an amazing time for home service based businesses. We were still are in what I think are the best markets within the outdoor lighting space. All accidentally, all things I didn't know when I signed the franchise paperwork to begin with. But, there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of like surrounding yourself with people that push you to grow, and um, a lot of like failing forward over and over again, which
Yeah.
was really cool.
What made you, when you decided, yeah, I got to make a career shift, what made you decide to go the franchising route versus just starting your own business?
Yeah. Again, it was the like not knowing what I didn't know.
Mm.
And, I actually think about this a lot now of like if I would make the same decision again, I still do lean back on like 9 out of 10 times going towards franchising from being independent. Um, and a lot of it was my wife operated a franchised business, a Fast Signs franchise, that and was very successful in that. We knew of a franchise consultant, and so he would um, send emails occasionally to me of just different businesses that were available. I actually had just come out of owner building our own swimming pool in our backyard and really enjoyed that process of like managing subcontractors and a team. And my first franchise I actually reached out on was under the same franchise umbrella of outdoor lighting perspectives, and it was a company called Architect. And Architect is a very successful franchise under Empower Brands. I thought that would align really closely with like the summer kitchens and swimming pools that I'd some experience doing. And during the discovery time, kind of found they were really built more for that like Eastern US wooden decks, elevated. And at the time didn't have a lot of resources for like paver and on grade stonework, things like that. So that wasn't really aligned, but the contact that was talking me through the process said, "Hey, there's actually this outdoor lighting perspectives franchise. I think you'd be a perfect fit." I took like 30 seconds reading about it and was like, "Yep, this is what we're doing. This is way better." And yeah, jumped in. Right from that point on, it was like, wow, you can make money doing landscape lighting. Like
Right.
that's
Right.
wild. I still think
And
that.
yeah, and you do have the engineering background, so maybe learning the lighting part of it might not have been as hard as some others, but is that something when you jumped in, were you like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it all myself," or was it, "No, I need to be business owner and hire people to do it, and I don't really wanna know how to do it?"
Yeah, my first hire was is the day it was actually slightly before we opened. I hired a technician to come help. I thought it was going to be like me and Dave working together in the field doing every install. Um, he came from a lighting background as well and had a coworker that he worked with that he really liked and wanted to bring on as well. So we um, hired our second employee, Christian, like 2 weeks after we opened. And I was in the trenches with them, doing an install one day, and Dave looked at me and he's like, "Hey, we we don't need you here. Like, I'm worried about the job that you haven't sold yet to keep me busy so I
Yeah,
can keep getting paid." So like he kicked me off the job site and was like, "Go find something for us next week to do." Um and so that was really cool to have that
yeah,
experience of like, "Hey, this is like we can do the install, get out of here." Um, but yeah, I thought for a long time I look back, it's wild the like pro forma I built that I quit my job based on that. I'm like, oh my God, if like way undershot everything and all the goals. Um, and had really low goals. Um, and yeah, I thought for the longest time I was going to be uh,
doing the work. Yeah.
doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're a business owner, you have multiple franchises looking into buying, not multiple or more, multiple territories, looking into
Yeah.
buying more.
Yeah.
And so I think you mentioned you have some semi partners in
Yeah.
different locations. So talk to me about the relationship of getting into partnership with somebody.
Yeah. That was one of the best decisions I made. Definitely one of the like scariest things that came up. We I was approached by another franchisee that owned locations in South Carolina. Kenny Kaufman is really well known within our franchise system, gives back a ton to other owners, does a lot of teaching. I'd already looked up to him, had listened to some talks he had given at our annual meetings, and he we were at lunch one day, and it's literally like the napkin, like, hey, this is what I think your business is evaluated at. Let me know how much you want to sell, while we're sitting at the end of this table. And I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, that's not really super interested. And then a couple months later, because of our growth, we started to run into some cash flow issues of just, I had lines of credit, and it was starting to, we weren't upside down in debt, but the debt was starting to pile on,
Yeah.
and we weren't going to be able to keep marketing and growing the way that I wanted to. And so I reached out to Kenny and just asked him what he thought this partnership would be like. And it was, a capital injection into the business, give him some equity. And it was easily the best decision we'd made. And then his business ownership model was similar to what we're doing now, which is grow and acquire other locations and build other offices, and then find key employees that you have and give them a piece of the pie. So have a key employee, nurture them into this ownership role, have them earn sweat equity into the business, and then also, if time's right, purchase into the business as well. And so we've been doing that, and that really does a great job of like golden handcuffing someone to something that they believe in
Yeah.
and you believe in, and knowing that you have this person you can trust, and they're not running off or going anywhere, or even
Yeah.
the
I
government's
mean, that can
involved
be
at that
hard for the
point.
trades
So
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah. But I think
yeah,
it also goes to show, like, giving ownership to somebody doesn't, I mean, that's a scary thing for them as well, right?
yep,
Because that then means they're also ownership of liabilities as well. And so it speaks to your culture for saying, hey, you started here and I'm willing to put you in this power position as long
yep.
as you show, that you can handle it. And so what does the team culture growth look like within your franchise?
Yeah, that's actually something that I think was and is still like one of the hardest things to nurture. And when we were small and I was involved in every aspect of the business, it was easy to have my vision be the vision for the company because everybody worked so closely with me. And I was so informed of like every small decision that I could be like, hey, that's not how I'd handle that. Or like, that's not what we do. Or, hey, that was a great job of doing that. I never, and learning from them. And then as you kind of get more separated from like the end transaction with your employees and your clients, it's hard to maintain that ownership and like that level of care. And so that's where I like this ownership of the operations managers and the staff, compensating employees through either profit sharing or we don't do it off profit. We have revenue goals that are actually weekly, and we bonus off of those weekly goals to our staff, so they can quickly get that feedback, and then really trying to empower your staff to also make decisions, try to build that culture of decisions of the way you would want them. We do stand-ups every week, debrief on situations. Hey, that's not how this should be handled, or, that was an exceptional job. I saw the review the client left for that project. And so we try to very publicly talk about those things. And yeah, it's culture is very hard to maintain and grow as you grow. I'm not to ramble on too much, but I'm always impressed when you go to like Chick-fil-A or the
Yeah.
Ritz-Carlton, both those locations, and the way every single person interacts with all of their clients, it at the scale they're at is
That's
incredible.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all react to situations in the exact same way. They're very,
Yep.
very systemized for sure. Talk to me a little bit about, because I have a lot of clients in the trades. Trades are,
Sure.
huge, and it seems like hiring is
Hmm.
always a fun thing, and there's a lot of scarcity in hiring for trades currently. Maybe not.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you hire, where you find people, and what are you looking for when you hire specifically for the trades?
Yeah. We're looking mostly for culture. And really my hiring philosophy is like firing as fast as possible. Like when you have someone that's not the right fit, um, we've done that before. We've had, I think everybody's had employees they've kept for too long, and you didn't realize how bad they were for the culture, how much of a bad apple spoils the bunch. And then when they're
Hmm.
let go, it's like there's this huge relief across, all of the staff that person's gone.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to recognize that. And one, culling that fast and getting rid of bad apples. The same thing, we really involve our like our technicians are basically we have lead technicians and then regular technicians, and involving those lead technicians and giving them permission to tell us when someone's not working out. If we have a new hire and that person's not working out within a week, I'm not in the van with that person for that past 40 hours. And so if that lead tech that's training comes to me and says, hey, that person's not the right culture, the fit, they're lazy, they're on whatever on the phone, like, okay, thanks. And then walking out and dismissing that person right there. It also lets that lead technician feel like, wow, I didn't want to have to work with that person for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And
He values what I feel. Yeah.
yeah. And like end of discussion, like not having this like talking about it for the next 2 weeks. But really looking for someone that's excited about what we do. Lighting is a complete luxury purchase. It's a little different than like HVAC or plumbing. Here in Florida, when our HVAC failed last summer, I wasn't really interested in price. It was like, who can be here now and get the equipment replaced also now? It was a need, whereas what we sell is a luxury and more of a want. And so having technicians that see what we do, and like if they come in during the interview and they're like, man, I checked out the website, like this is like, you guys do that? That's awesome. It's like I can train that person to take care, rather than the person that we actually really haven't had much success hiring people with like extensive mechanical backgrounds. It's usually
Yeah.
hiring
Yeah,
because
and
someone
especially
thinks
if
it's
they
neat.
come with that experience, then it's hard to retrain them to do it the way that you want. They come with
They
these
can't,
preconceived notions, and that could be anything from a technician to a salesperson to a marketing person. It really goes the whole way.
yeah, it can be. And we're in an interesting position where most of the lighting companies, like our competitors and a lot of companies around, are more owner operator companies. And so we're larger. We have more technicians. We have an office staff that handles all the client experience. And it can be hard when you bring on a technician from another company that's transferring over, and then trying to let them know like, hey, you're not on an island by yourself. Like, you have a whole
Mhm.
back office here to help you. Like, if you get stuck on something, you don't need to go call all the clients to shuffle your schedule. Like, just let the office know. And so training, that's also because we've had some great technicians come over that have great experience and good techniques, but training them like, hey, you're not used to all these resources, but like you have a
Yeah.
lot here to lean on. That can be a little bit of a change for them.
Yeah, of course. And so as you're growing and your team is a huge part of that, one of the things you mentioned earlier is, we keep setting goals and we kept breaking those goals pretty easily. So take me through how you are setting goals now that you kind of maybe have your feet in the ground and go, well, we just broke every goal we had in the first
Yeah.
year. Now what?
Yeah. Now our goals are definitely set a little bit more numbers based. So
Okay.
we actually, it's less of our feeling, and it's more of it really starts with our budget. So setting our annual budget at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, and following it religiously. Like, we do a monthly P&L review with our operations staff. We have a fractional CFO that works in our business. That's huge. And so having someone that's like chasing me down for receipts or wondering, hey, these are unallocated transactions, where do they belong? Um, and having that like proper money reporting is huge for goal setting. That was also my absolute least favorite part of having a business, was bookkeeping. So like
Yeah.
getting able to not do that is great. Um, but having those reviews, and then we have a budget goal and we have a sales goal. And usually the sales goal is 10 to 15% over budget. But the budget goal is like, if we're not hitting this goal, we're spending incorrectly. And it will directly impact end of year profit and cash flow and everything. And then we have our sales and revenue goals, which, based on experience, we can push and do an extra 10 to 20% over our budgetary goals. And of course, if we're doing that and still sticking to our previous budget, that's very helpful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas when we started, it was kind of like spend money wildly and chasing revenue without understanding the expense side of things. So
Yeah. But you do have to, I mean, like you mentioned, you have to spend money to make money. And so how do
absolutely.
you decide where to spend money when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, it's all data based. So we on a weekly basis are looking at first it's about cleaning up your data. So we use call tracking numbers, and every client gets asked, how did you hear about us? We're very you know very systematized on knowing exactly where every project came from and putting that into our CRM and tracking all that information. And then we can take that and we can compare that to revenue. So we know, okay, this method of advertising, yeah, it didn't bring in as many leads as we want, but then maybe they're higher value leads. And so, on a percentage of revenue, this is a good multiplier. Typically, we're looking at, a 10x multiplier of $1 marketing in, $10 of revenue back. And so just comparing, trying new things, everything's changing between
Mm-hmm.
Google AI, trying different referral partnerships and trade partners and all that. So really tracking all that data, and not being married to anything.
Sure.
Everything's on the table to stop, or,
Yeah.
so stop, start, continue for every single thing we could possibly do.
Is there any avenue of marketing that you either really thought like you were like, "Oh, this is gonna work. It's gonna be awesome," and it completely flopped, or vice versa, you're like, "This is not gonna work," and it got you more than you expected?
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. Like we've done the like automated text messaging campaigns to list, which I was like, who is going to respond to the random, like, I'm in your neighborhood doing lighting, let me know if you want a consult. You get that from like tree trimming.
Mhm.
I get palm tree trimming all the time, is somebody always wants to trim the palms because they're in the neighborhood. And I was like, nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to fall for that. And it's turned into a great, I mean, we get a lot of like small service calls, but I think we just had a $35,000 project close from one of those. And it's
And
a
that's future
very,
clients too, yeah.
yep, yep. And it's a very low cost lead source. And then we've had other times where we've invested a lot of money with like digital marketing companies that were going to promise all this SEO background and landing pages and generate all this with geo targeting and locating and, geofencing your clients' homes and all this. And like, we just lit the money on fire behind us.
Yeah.
And, you're like, man, that technology stack sounds great, but wow, it didn't turn into projects. And so, um, I think a big part is always having like a plan A, B, and C going on. I remember I had an admin that worked for me early on, and my brother is my operations manager, Corey, here in Orlando, and I think he got a large project and I got one like in the same day. And she's like, "Man, you Hogue boys, you guys are just lucky." And it's like, so, you didn't see the 9 other things we have going in the background that ghosted us and didn't turn into anything.
Right.
So it's it could seem lucky if you only ever doing one thing at a time or an outsider, but when you have 5 stakes in the fire, it's um, you know,
Yeah.
something will come out, hopefully.
Yeah, but I think that I mean, there's a lot of important things in there when it comes to marketing. Trying things you never thought would work. You got to try things to see if they even work, but you have to track it to know if it works.
Yeah.
And having multiple
Diversifying.
streams of it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, again, if one stops working, which what happens if Google changes their algorithm and
Yep.
it was working and now it's not? Then you got to have multiple streams. So I think that's really important for people
Yeah.
to understand for
Yeah. And
sure.
there's the thought too of the 7 touches before someone wants to work with you if you're coming out of the blue. So, it's having them see your vans in the neighborhood, which are hopefully wrapped and visible. Um, Yard signs, print marketing still works well for us. Mailers that end up in people's mailboxes, and being creative with that. Um, and then, yeah, Meta, all the different ways you can show up on Facebook and Instagram. And so finally, when they do say, "Hey, I've been," subconsciously they've seen all of your stuff and they say, "Oh, interested in outdoor lighting." And they search on Google, being one of those top paid ads that pops up, so that way you catch them on that final time. Um, and then one thing that really helped us a lot was kind of free marketing advice, was when I opened, um, looking at all our competitors and trying to find out where there were items that they weren't being successful at. And I don't mean the install, because we have some competitors that are award winning and do incredible work that like I would love to have at my home, and I think we compete well with on the design side. But noticing early on that none of our competitors had more than 80 reviews when we opened. And so starting in 2020, it's like, okay, we're going to do great work, of course, but like we need to be a review monster. And so how do we get reviews efficiently? How do we coach our staff to be looking for reviews? And so now I think in Orlando, we're at 350 5-star reviews.
Wow.
I think we're over 100 in all of our other markets that we have. And so it's just like having that ingrained into all of the staff, all the admin, and coaching our clients on like, hey, reviews are important to us from the first sale. And then when we're done and say, hey, I know we've talked a lot about how important 5-star reviews are. We'd love if you help us out and leave and by that time they're like, oh yeah, this is expected.
Yeah.
That part's free. And now when you go into, Google Maps or search, it's like, oh, the company with 5 times more reviews than anybody else stands out a
Of
lot.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great to look at your competition and say, where are they lacking that I can make up? So I can
Yeah.
say, hey, go look at my competition. You won't find what you find here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So like you said, lighting's lighting. People go, okay, cool, it's lighting, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want the company to like leave behind? What's the why of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think it's well, we're after affluent properties and affluent homeowners. So they're not as price sensitive. They're more value sensitive, and they want to understand the desire and like a picture painted. And so
Mhm.
for us, we're really trying to solve 3 major things with our clients' homes. So there's obviously the beauty. Like, these clients are spending, a lot of times these beautiful homes, they've got, you know, intricate detail and brickwork or stonework or stucco detailing, and they've paid a lot for that. And you can remind them that, hey, half the time it is dark and you don't get to see all of the, and honestly, during the day, most times nobody's around to enjoy it because your work or doing
Yeah,
activities are out and away. And really at night is when you're home and get to appreciate it. So beauty is a huge part for it. Safety is obviously huge. So lit property is a lot safer from burglaries and things like that, but also just safety in the sense of like, you don't want anybody tripping down the stairs or slipping over a garden hose across a path. And so providing that lighting to help provide safety around the home. And then lastly, and I think my favorite thing is always to provide utility. So having a space in a backyard or an area that is unusable at night and making it one of the client's favorite spaces after you're done.
yeah.
One of my favorite stories of that is we had a client building a home, beautiful property with all these old growth oak trees, and they had this gorgeous tree on a lake, and it was pretty far from the home. And we talked to the client how we could hang these chandeliers in the tree and provide all this lighting in the area. And so the client had the builder actually build a walking path out to the oak tree and put like a paver deck around the base of the tree. And we lit that whole area. And the client not only loved it so much that they now spend time out there, but they actually hosted their son's wedding under that tree
Oh my
after we were
goodness,
done. And
that's
so,
amazing.
it was like, it was a beautiful tree, but it's a tree, and they didn't, there was no intent when they were building that house of being like, oh, we're gonna have a wedding under that oak tree someday. Um, but that was a really cool thing that we developed on their property, and still, one of their favorite parts of their property.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story, and highly recommend if you guys aren't following them on Instagram. I see a lot of the before and after pictures or
Oh
the,
yeah,
"Hey, we quoted this person and they decided to do it themselves."
yep,
Those are
yeah,
always my favorite. I'm like, "Oh, that's why you hire them."
yeah. Yeah, we're really big on the not making your driveway or home look like a spaceship with all the
Mhm.
lights dotted all over the place. It's really, I think that's one thing also that helped kind of transitioning from the theme park world. One, Central Florida, everybody's familiar with Disney and Universal and SeaWorld. And so having that cloud of like, hey, I used to do electrical and people, I was doing medium voltage design. I wasn't designing lighting fixtures at
Right.
Disney, but people make the assumptions they want to make. And but really talking about like, hey, I'm not here to sell you a light fixture because I don't really care if you notice. I don't want you to see any of these light fixtures. I want you to see what they're doing and highlighting your home. I'm not trying to have you walk around and go, wow, all these lights are really pretty on the ground. That's not the point. So
Another point. Yeah, it's not like indoor
yeah,
lighting where you're like, "I want a pretty chandelier." It could be, I guess, in that one
yeah,
tree
yeah,
case, but
yeah,
most of the time, that's not what it's about. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
not what it can do. Awesome. And so we are coming up to the end. So my
Sure.
favorite question to ask is if there's one piece of business advice that you could give to a business owner to start doing today, like something actionable that they could start doing today that a year from now they'd look back and go, wow, I'm so happy I started that one thing. What would it be?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it requires you to look inward and at your past and maybe provide an answer you don't like, which
Mhm.
is your current peer group building you up and growing you or keeping you where you're at? I think I love all of my college buddies and friends, and I'm still close with a lot of them and close with neighbors and things, and have friends in my life that are non-entrepreneurial, or they're caught in kind of like the before times, and I love them to death, and cherish all the time we have together, but I can't relate with them and they can't relate with me for the business and entrepreneur side. And so finding those groups that um, are like-minded people that are working through growing their business, doesn't have to be a related business, but trying to find somebody that makes you uncomfortable with how they're growing their business or doing their things, and then also that are doing it better. So if you're in a business that's doing 1 million in revenue or trying to do 1 million in revenue a year, finding the group of guys that are doing 5 to 10 million, trying to get to 20, and try to find a way to get in there
Yeah.
through however you can. Um, and changing that mindset. I've got some friends now that I look up to incredibly, that are some of the smartest people I've ever met, and push me. I love going to them with difficult questions, and then they're just like, no, here's the answer, and it's uncomfortable, and it's not the answer you wanted that you might have got from the people that love and care about you,
Yep.
but they give you the hard truths, and
Yeah.
um, it's uncomfortable, and it was the biggest thing that changed my life and changed our business, was that. And to slightly expand on that, we talked at the very beginning about franchising versus not, and I was talking with another outdoor lighting perspectives owner, actually Brandon Parker, who you know very well. I was talking with Brandon about this, kind of the comparing between an independent and a franchise. And what I told him is, if I had gone independent at the beginning, I probably would have grown a very successful lighting company in Orlando, maybe. But by being a franchise and having the mindset of like, there's locations and there's offices that do certain revenue, and um they're all growing and judged against each other, I would have never grown to having a location in West Palm Beach, or looking at Fort Lauderdale, or looking up the coast, in northeastern Florida. And so, by surrounding myself with the peers of franchisees, it was like, oh, this is bigger than a lighting
Yeah.
company in Orlando. This is something we can grow and be. Um,
I love that. That's a great
yeah.
because it opens your mind to say, well, it also forms a thing of competition and camaraderie,
Yep.
right? Because there is that, oh, I want to be the best one in the
Of
franchise, but
course.
also I can call them and they know exactly what I'm talking about. And
Yep.
so that's a really good plug for that. But I think both of those were really good pieces of advice. I love the first one as well because so many times we do fall to our friends and family and they go, "Oh, you're doing so good. Keep going." And that might not be the answer that we need. It's probably not the answer that we need. And
Yeah.
so finding those people who are going to give you the hard truth and say, "Hey, you know what? You probably should change some things."
Yeah. Nothing like going to somebody and saying, hey, I want to invest $250,000 in installing low voltage landscape lighting around neighborhood homes. And they go, no, you
Yeah.
should not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
So,
the opposite effect too, right? Once you're in
yeah.
business, it's all, "You got this, go." And before
Yep.
business, like, "You shouldn't do that." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fun is that? But awesome. Well, so thank you so much, Travis, for being here. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you just want everybody to know?
Yeah. I think that if you are, it's very easy to overanalyze. Having something that you do love to do, um, is so important, that you can see a way that it's either bettering your employees, bettering your clients. Um, it, it really does help you get through the hard times. Um, and then having your reason why. So my reason why is my family. I think I'm have two young children. I think um, recognizing that I could spend more hours in the business working on things and potentially even see faster growth, but then stepping back and recognizing like I don't want to miss any of my kids' little league teams games, and that's an advantage I have not being an employee but being an employer. And so recognizing that like I'm not going to chase to push the business to that 11/10ths because I'm going to buy some of my time now, is incredibly important. And knowing your why is important to make sure you've always got.
Very cool. Well, Travis, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way? Instagram, website, all that stuff.
We have the easiest lighting website ever. It's outdoorlights.com. It connects you with myself or your local outdoor lighting franchise. And then you can also follow us. We're outdoorlights_Orlando on Instagram and Facebook to check out our most recent projects. We're always posting projects before and afters, day in the life. You can see what our technicians are up to. And it's really cool.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the comment stuff as well. So thank you so much again. And thank you
Yeah.
everybody for listening to Level Up with Lydia. We'll be back next Tuesday with another episode, and keep following, sharing, commenting. And if you want to be a guest, reach out and let us know. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, watch me.